All right, you are good to go, Jack, whenever you're ready.
All right. So I'm Jack McCoy, named after the dude from Law and Order. True story. And for all those worrying about how I'll be corny during this presentation, I'm here to squash that right now. That was my only joke with you.
Thank goodness.
But basically, I know, right? My thing was on genetically modified crops, and I actually learned a surprising amount of things, like how, well, obviously we learned how they affected the environment and stuff, but like, genetically modified crops are crops which have had their DNA modified. So basically, they would take DNA from one plant, put it into the other plant with the desired traits they would want. And like some of the benefits of genetically modifying the crops are to resistance from insects. So farmers get to spray like less pesticides and stuff. So it's slightly better in the environment. They're resistant to viruses, so the crops are alive. That's I guess important. They have intolerance to herbicides. Increased crop yields, so they're a bit more fruitful. So there's more stuff, and I guess farmers get to plant more different things, not just that. And improved like appearance and flavors, such as like the apple, some to be genetically modified to yeah, and also to resist like brown spot bruising, I believe. And there's some concerns to GMOs and genetically modified things, and such as like allergies and obviously the environment, but also like cancer is somewhat of a concern. Just casual cancer. Not enough like long-term studies have happened to necessarily prove such things. They're regulated by 3 different government agencies, because we need that. And so like such things as like you can see like a thing has been genetically modified by like some places on the box, I suppose. And like some also say just like non-GMO. They wanted to make sure. And also some, because it is 2022 or 2020, who knows? And they have a code scan, like QR code. So I just thought that was cool. Wow. And we're technologically advanced. And but yeah, that was my presentation.
Victim, you get to be the first one for this. Anybody have a question for Jack? Oh, there we go.
But we all died of cancer. We genetically modified crops.
Like I said, not enough long-term studies, so undecided. Next. Michael.
How do you spell GMO?
Oh, dang it. GMC, I think. Anyone else?
That's a car. All right.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Lewis.
Can bean be allergic to apples?
That's a great question.
Yes.
Probably.
Jerry Seinfeld's problem. Be allergic to basically anything.
This is accurate.
You've already gone, James.
Yeah.
Shut them down.
Wait, what was James' question? I couldn't hear it.
Is there somebody that says how to move things?
No, 10%, 0%, 0%,
Calculating. Hold on, calculate.
Does not.
I mean,
Did you vote like 1 to 1 or not?
Guys in the back.
unknown. There you go. Great answer.
If there isn't, you can send the idea in.
Anyone else?
That's Drew.
Everyone just ask a question. I'm prepared.
What are you gonna do now? Like what chemicals, like what about the pesticides is bad for the environment?
That would probably be for a person who did something on pesticides. No, just because like, I don't know, some of the chemicals in it are probably not like great. Some chemicals aren't great. But yeah, probably just the chemical. There, great answer. You've already gone. Anyone else? Cole.
This is probably Papa John's 100% organic?
I would have to look at the box, and currently I have stations up here.
All right, I think Jack did a great job. Good job, Jack. Thanks for being the volunteer. Or the victim, or whatever you want to call it.
Spread the wealth, man.
All right, excellent. So you going, E? All right, let's do it, E. Ethan Randall. Sorry, it would help do that.
That's fine, okay?
I'm using this as a point. So,
All right,
first of all, your animal adaptation.
all right. Thank
I assume you all know what this is over because you know it was a question. So basically, but there's actually facets to adaptation, which is crazy. The first one is physical adaptation, which is like adaptation that do with the physicality of man. Like the toucan has a big old, as most of you know, used to eat nuts that it usually wouldn't get. Or the chameleon, which is uses camouflage, which obviously has to do with its staples. There's another one of those. It was like
Must have aced the question, Bob.
yeah, I did. There was like 2 weeks ago. I was so tired I didn't even know what the question is. I got asked by it. All right, second one, behavioral adaptation. I assume that y'all can probably infer this has to do with behavior of an animal.
Wow, we should know that.
He said infer. Ooh. Hey, hey.
Interestingly enough, about behavioral adaptations is that unlike physical adaptations, which are usually inherited from like parent to child, behavioral adaptations are learned. One of the biggest examples of this would be like geese migrating. They just don't do that. Like if you would just like randomly plop the geese out with like, and it didn't have like a mother or father, it would not migrate because they just don't know how. They're taught by their parents or by their because yeah, exactly. All right, third one, physiological. That one, I think all right. These have to do with the metabolic changes. Their adaptation has to do with the metabolic changes of animals. So basically, but one example of this that I actually found pretty cool is that snake's venom. That's an example. Like if a snake is venomous, and like that is a metabolic change in like the animal. Yeah, it's on a permanent basis apparently. All right, and then there. Why do you hate salt?
You want some tape?
Sure, I guess. Wait, I'm nearly done. I got it.
I'm nearly
done.
What did the North Star this time?
He's also.
You know I love you, Eve.
Okay, and then the final part we're talking about are adaptations that occur due to the environment of nature. So basically what it would be is like if you were, for example, like this polar bear and Arctic fox, they both have white fur blended with the snow of like the polar regions that they tend to be in. Or like this bison or buffalo, they have better stomach acid to digest like the grass that they typically eat because it's very like tough because they live in the plains area. Thank you for clapping. I wasn't done, but okay. These adaptations they can be any of these three types. They're not like limited. They're not their own facet. I just thought I'd talk about them because they like are a very large part of kind of like the adaptation process, I suppose. Just there's a wide variety. They can basically be anything. Like giraffes, they have like longer necks because they can't like reach the trees that they like to eat.
I mean, it wasn't like Lamarck's little sketch of the giraffes doing that.
No.
Oh, yeah,
it's
like big ones die.
Then another one,
With that
final
one.
thing I'm gonna talk about. Y'all know how sloths, they move slowly? Well, apparently they can actually grow a layer of algae on themselves because they move so slow and they're so lean.
Here they go.
Is flopping and ease now a scientific term?
Yes, no, very scientific. I was the one who actually came up with the whole term, yes.
Let's keep it special.
Yes, so which one tastes better, bison or
Slice is pretty good.
Yeah, bison eggs pretty good.
Delicious.
Okay.
You know, so,
Any questions to
How big
me?
was Bison's?
you just asked.
No, come on, I got you.
Let me break, let me food to eat it.
Bison,
Yeah.
explain. Do you know how many besides died before they decided to migrate?
I need a napkin.
I don't think that would be a hard thing to measure, because they don't necessarily move because they're like 100% going to die. They only migrate because they're, so they would like, if you they lived in like Canada, they would try to migrate down to like the closer south region, probably like Carolina or something this summer, so it's a little bit warmer. Yes.
Is that the scientific term, is that where the scientific term comes from? Rural city ducks.
I don't, maybe, I don't
That's a
think
good
that's
question.
a scientific term, you're correct. I also don't know the validity of that if that's a scientific term or not, but okay, yes.
How did the migrating become captions?
I would have to do more research on that. I didn't necessarily look on how it came into be, because I feel like that would, it would all have to do with it would all be circumstance, and it would probably go like way far back. But I would assume it would probably just be that geese, like there was more geese dying per year than during the colder months. And the geese like, why don't we go to a place that won't kill us? That seems like a great idea. So they would migrate.
Alright.
They would basically migrate to a place that would, you know, not be as harsh of a cold. Yes, final question.
Humans grow beaks.
What? Can humans grow beaks? I don't think so. Humans can adapt. Like there was, like if you live in a area that has less oxygen, the human will actually grow bigger lungs and like a, I think it's better. So you can like, take in more oxygen.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was.
Alrighty. Do we have any more volunteers? All right, Ms. Darcy, do you think,
I
girl?
have one thing to say real fast.
Oh, yes.
I love how your grading rubric, it has things like answer questions very well,
Oh, thank you.
but like all the questions are.
Well, I meant within the writing, but still.
Try not to. Just get more this way.
All right, Ms. Darcy. Oh, is Claire gonna be your slide girl, your Vanna White?
Okay, people, this is called plastic, paper, more plastic. Any questions? Plastic.
Why? Which one's plastic?
Is this an artistic expression?
All right, guys at the back. Shh, Ms. Darcy's doing her thing. Go, Darcy.
I'm sorry, one more about the last, I can't help myself, so shut up. This presentation is called plastic, paper, or cloth. Did you know that there has been a big debate on whether or not you should use plastic bags or paper bags? Some people think you should use paper bags because they think that plastic bags are too high in HTP, really bad for you because apparently it kills you. Really fast. Or as it is formally known, high density polyethylene, which is made of thermoplastic polymer, which is created out of petroleum. It is one of the most versatile plastic materials around. It makes up an abundance of other plastics that we use in daily life and produces 1.6 kilograms of carbon dioxide per bag. Prefer to use plastic bags, they tell you that paper bags are made solely in wood pulp that also causes deforestation and releases 5.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide
Atta
into
girl.
the atmosphere per bag. In the world, when you reuse plastic bags more than a couple of times, it helps slow down the production and helps reduce the amount of landfill sites. However, using a paper bag less than 3 times is less of an impact than a single-use plastic bag. When it comes to staying around for a long time, plastic bags certainly do that. The average time for a plastic bag to stay around is 20 years to 2 centuries. So Best case scenario, if you're an adult, you have a child and they pretty much just finished college. 2 centuries, we're all dead. Yay. On the other hand, paper bags biodegrade very quickly. In 1 month to 90 days on average, so they have less of a chance of being consumed by unsuspecting animals. Comparing all the factors of these two options present, you would use none of the above. You may prefer to use cloth bags.
Ooh, Darcy, do me one thing. Bring your paper down a little bit so we can see your face. Atta girl. That's much better. There you go. Now we can see her. All right.
Do you really know what happens to plastic when it's thrown away? 1 out of 3 plastic bottles end up in landfill. And when it rains, the water and plastic molecules fuse together to create a dangerous off-run called leachate, which can instantly kill any animal. Which can end up in ponds, streams, and if some people are really dumb, they'll collect it in water bottles. And you drink that.
Nice.
Oh, yes. And okay, yes. Where was I? Oh, yes. Which can end up in ponds and streams, disturbing the harmony of wildlife. They're basically killing everything. Also, it's kind of like acid, so it burns through stuff. Another 1/3 of plastic bottles end up in a stream, which runs into a lake, and eventually runs into the ocean, where it is sucked into a garbage vortex. There is an even better option for these bottles. The remaining third is recycled to be reincarnated into more plastic objects.
Reincarnated is a good word there. I like that.
When landfills full of rain, it can cover a lot of ground very quickly and be swept into groundwater, rivers, and streams. That sickens the area and population of the wildlife. It also kills wildlife, by the way.
Yeah.
The trash vortexes around the world are the South Atlantic Gyre and the Indian Ocean Gyre, West Pacific Gyre, East Pacific Gyre, and South Pacific Gyre, which fuses with the South Atlantic Gyre to make the South Pacific and Atlantic garbage patch. Plastic that has been recycled is compressed. Wait, did I read?
No, you're good, I think.
Yes. The plastic that is being recycled is compressed into tiny plastic pellets that are melted to make items that are made from plastic, such as new clothing, new water bottles, and shoes. Plastic can take 2 terrible paths or 1 good path, depending on the person that has disregarded it. I'm still going. What would be reason to use paper bags? Paper takes a lot less time to biodegrade than its closest contenders, cotton bags and plastic bags. Actually, this may take a while, so I'm going to speed talk. However, it takes a lot of raw
You're
materials.
fine. Slow it down. You're good. We're
The
good.
paper is a structure of a paper bag. It is 2 times heavier than a typical plastic bag, which means it will have a greater carbon footprint. This means it will have twice the impact on the environment as a plastic bag would have. Lewis, stop. Okay, it leaves a greater carbon footprint than a plastic bag, but less of a carbon footprint as a cotton bag. It cannot be used as many times as a plastic or cotton bag due to its design flaws and flimsiness of the bag when it gets wet. You know, you've seen it, paper.
That's good. That's exactly what it does. Yeah. You done?
Aw.
Things I need.
I agree.
That's poetic.
Like, you said
It cannot be used as many times as plastic or cotton bags. Yes, I already said that. Paper bags have their pros and cons. Some people prefer to think of them as a greener solution due to what we are led to believe from the influences on the media. Why not use renewable, sustainable solutions, which is a cotton bag? Cloth bags are.
Percy. Woo. Hi, girl. Keep going. Good job.
There's a typo here. It says cloth bag, but it's actually supposed to be cotton. Cotton bags are heavy duty, multiple, almost endless use bag. What?
You need to turn cotton into cloth.
I think she's being more specific because not all cloth is cotton.
Specific Very specific, oh shit.
There you go. Tie it up for us, girl.
An almost endless use bag, whereas plastic generally serves a single use bag, cloth bags are eventually biodegradable and less likely to end up in a landfill or one of the ocean garbage patches. They last much longer than paper bags due to their fiber structure and their ability to be washed and reused.
All right,
Wait, I got like one more sentence.
all right.
They are far less often mistaken as food by ocean life due to their tough exterior, as well as being rarely discarded by humans. The production of cotton bags is very labor intensive and more costly than the production of its closest contenders. Keeping all of this in mind, which bag would you ask for next time you're in the store?
Ah.
Good.
That's the one you live with. Yep.
Yes, it is a dumb black. Your
All right, thank you, Darcy. Very good. All right, any other volunteers? Okay, Lewis is already standing, so we'll do you next, Will, if that's cool. Lewis looks ready to go. Ready to go, Lewis? All right, so stand up so we can see your face.
Story, everyone.
It's not pictures.
All right, can you stand up, Lewis? Do you want somebody to come hold for you? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go grab it. I can hear you. I'm gonna grab a music stand. Keep going.
Most people think that plants are passive, harmless, and healthy, and that they exist to feed animals and others. Most Oh my God, what are you doing? Most people walk past plants every day without giving them a second thought. However, plants are much more evolved and ruthless than humans in some areas. Evolution is a survival game that is eclectic, which it extends. What was that?
Where'd it go? Where was I reading? I can help you. Hold on. Can you bring this over for your position?
That's an extensive arsenal of defense mechanisms, such as poisons, chemicals, and stabbers to effectively defend themselves.
Nice.
One of the many defenses is the thorn. Thorns are pointy branches or stems which deliver to you.
There you go. Can you still see it if it's up that high, or just keep it down that low? Yeah.
So, by the way, if anyone's wondering if I can fight my way out of a wet paper bag,
Oh my gosh, I knew you were gonna go there sometime. All right. It's a very heavy. Just don't touch it.
One of the many defenses is the those are one defense I already said that. The base punching function is to stab or puncture anything which tends to attack. But sometimes even humans accidentally step on them or brush their heads against
What is it they accidentally step on? I missed it.
thorns.
Thorns. Oh, goodness, yes, I've done that.
Causing pain or even infection. Many people assume that rose bushes have thorns, but in actual fact, they are prickles, which we will come into later. When predators attempt to consume plants which contain thorns, they puncture the mouth of the attacker, which means that bacteria will be able to enter the lungs and head for the digestive system. Plants with thorns are a very non-appealing vehicle.
Your whole body move, that's you do. Oh, look at that. Look at that. There you go. Now we can hear you better. There you go, friend.
Another effective plant defense is the prickle. As I mentioned above, 200 pages before, a rose bushes do not have thorns, but rather prickles. It is a common mistake that a majority of people make. Prickles are pointed protuberance which are connected to the epidermis of the plant. Like a fingernail is to a finger.
Being careful about which finger to select, thank you. I'll get it. I'm just gonna stay here and hold it for you. Okay, here you go, my friend. I will this is it. Okay, keep going, you're doing great.
The appearance of is a razor sharp fractal. Tiny plant hoppers can carefully squeeze in between the pickles and bring the plants out, whilst also avoiding predators themselves. The third defense mechanism is the spine. Spines have over the time evolved to draw blood from the plant's spread. Cacti, as you can see here, cacti is probably the most memorable plant of all. The cacti has a juicy stem that is covered in spines to protect against the succulent beetles that can attack cacti. The cacti can also use its spine to shade itself from the blazing hot desert sun. Cacti that do not live in the desert, but in more temperate weather environments commonly have a wider coat of spines, as they do not require as much shade from the harsh/half of the deserts. New paragraph. Good job. Trichomes are furry pointed structures that are a lot like hairs in the big guy. Stinging nettles are the most notable of all. Containing trichomes. Another plant that also has trichomes is the thistles. It is a national flower of Scotland. These hair-like structures can inflict gruesome wounds as a worst outcome, even mild cases can be very painful and create lumps of human skin that can be sorted. By the way, my dad wrote the whole thing. To sticks and just let it jack.
That would work, that would work.
I'll tell you why on this next one. In some cases, they can cause excruciating pain and even death.
All right. Death by thistle.
Idioblasts come in bundles of cells that contain toxic compounds called graphites. These barb crystals can penetrate the mouths and throats of predators and then cause the subs.
Yeah, that was the twin, yeah. Good one.
Release of toxic enzymes resembling the venom of reptiles.
Whoa.
One of the most recognized plants containing idioblasts are the donkey.
Yeah.
In humans, eating plants with idioblasts can cause loss of speech and can even be paralyzed. These symptoms gave the common houseplant donkey its name. Donut, you're paralyzed. More research on idioblasts in rat life includes they have been found in an abundance of over 200 plant species, including common fruits such as pineapple and taro. Pineapple, everybody watch out. Pineapple smell. Oh, cool. Chemical signaling is like sending out messages in between plants that are attacked by insects, or maybe in the throes of successful conditions such as drought or other adverse weather conditions.
plants under attack have the ability to warn other plants of the impending crisis by releasing volatile organic compound or VOCs, which cause similar reactions in nearby plants. They can increase the amount of toxic compounds stored off level. Or they may even release compounds of their own to attract the enemy's predators to themselves. There was recent scientific evidence that plants can communicate through chemicals released by their roots. What are we talking about? We're on a roll.
You're doing great, man.
Poison can sometimes be very useful, but not always harmful to its predators. For example, poison ivy can create a skin reaction in humans that creates irritation, leading to blisters, and even include scars. However, poison ivy is not toxic to birds who can eat their berries. You got a question?
Excellent.
You want to show them your poison ivy.
Down there, all right. Anybody else have a question for Lewis?
No, I'm not done.
Oh, you're not done? Well, all right, good. All right, wrap it up there.
Monarch butterfly caterpillar typically feast on milkweed, which is why they grow up eating butterflies that are poisonous. Rarely he uses these poisons, but Walter White used
Whoa.
Terry Reiter, and eventually used it to assassinate all of Germany.
Yeah.
Yes. Nearly.
He's the one who knocks.
Plants can be very effective. Plants can be very effective, but not always.
Need help?
Not always lethal.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a question, very, very good one. So can you say Walter White?
Answer Darcy, so we can. Where's the next one?
Walter White 10 times fast?
No.
I want to say death by thistle sometimes fast. All right, Alex has a question.
You've heard of the tree that is so poisonous you can't stand under it in the rainstorm without getting skin blisters?
Good.
But I wish I was
Something to Google.
okay, you,
James, hand the name.
no.
What was your
Actually,
question?
yes, multiple.
What was your question? I didn't hear it.
Reported deaths by
Oh, death by thistle.
Yes, there's
Reported
at
death
least
by
200.
I bet you.
thistle.
Every single time I'm telling you the sticks.
Good
Any
job.
other questions?
All right. Thank you, Lewis.
In its fruit, a poison that is nearly undetectable are relatively modern science.
Ooh.
This is very surprising.
You know, if you eat enough apple seeds, it's poisonous. All right, Darcy, ask him when you get home because we're watching the clock. All right, so anybody else want to volunteer? Claire? Okay, Claire. Oh, wait, no, Lily was next. I'm sorry. Lily, then Claire. All right, Lily, up you go.
Let's have any other questions.
No, I think you're good, babe.
Can you find where out of what bag?
Yes, of course.
Hey.
Unless it's one that's like 100.
Is that from what's up?
Unless it's a big one.
Is our second available?
Yeah, sure. Eat them till they're gone. If you want. All right, let's let Lily get situated. All right, everybody quiet. Hold. All right, Lily. What you got for us today? Cat behaviors? Okay.
So I think the most common ones, but I also did like some of the funniest ones too. Yay. So some of them, obviously, needing, they do that to calm themselves and remind themselves that they're needed.
Hold on a second. Guys, stop. For real. Let her talk.
It's not you.
I know, they're laughing at something else, but it's rude. Jerks. Thank you. All right, Lil, you do your thing.
Okay, so needing, they do it to calm themselves down and they also do it to remind themselves of their mothers. So if you have a cat that you got from like either Petco or PetSmart, they're probably taken away from their mothers. So they do it, if they have brothers or sisters, they do it to each other to remind themselves of home or just to calm themselves down. Or, let's do purring. Okay, so purring is a low frequency vibration that can calm themselves from stress. They also do it when they're hungry to annoy their owner, so they can feed them quicker. So they want it when they want food, or they're just stressed out, or they do it to each other. So if you have more or one cat, they lay next to each other and then they purr and they lead, so they can all calm each other's selves down. So then there's gift giving. My cat Ron, he brings plastic bags to my dad downstairs when he's working, so he can tell him how much he loves him. And it just is a sense of telling you that they appreciate you and they love you. So it can not only be like, oh, here's a dead mouse, they also bring you live animals. If they're outside cats, they bring you live animals like frogs, mice. My cat Allie caught a frog once, and then she brought it into the house, and it was still alive, and we had to kick it out. So then, what?
We're looking up the frog.
Yeah, then we do head bumping. Head bumping, this is something that my cat Hermione does a lot. She does it when she's really happy. Her tail fluffs up because she's really happy, and she just rubs up against everything. She's not usually happy, because she's more like a grumpy cat. So she usually just lays down in my mom's room a lot. But she does it when she's super happy or she wants treats. Like I said before, she will purr a lot when she wants treats, not done. Or, okay. Purring again, I have to go back to purring, sorry. So purring is also a sign of love. So if they're laying in your lap and you're petting them, it will be more of a thankful, like they know they're safe with you. They do it to tell you that they're safe and like okay with you. And slow blinking. That is a sign of they can trust you and they know that you will never hurt them. Slow blinking is what a bunch of cats do when you've had them for a while. I've had my cats for 4 years or 5, and they all do it. They always just lay in the middle of the room and they slow blink and they purr a lot. That means they trust you a lot and they would know that you would never hurt them or anything. So yeah, that's it.
Good job.
More of a statement and a question. My grandmother has a cat that's actually named, yes, Whitey. And it basically just bites her ankles a lot. It doesn't like her very much. Had it for like 4 years. And it used to bring dead snakes, well, not actually dead snakes. It used to bring a live snakes.
Nope,
My
hold
elderly
on.
grandmother has to like dive under the couch again. She's basically like a professional snake wrestler now. Well, there you go.
All right, thank you.
On the head bumping, do you think I get or what?
All right, last question. Let's try to limit to 3 questions so we'll get through. So James, you got the last one.
There's one other question.
Okay.
So you have the cat named Ron, and one named Hermione, you have one. We do these?
Yes, they do. Good call.
Ron Herring. And then Savannah sends me multiple pictures of that day.
Hey. Thank you, Lily. Good job. All right, Claire.
Yep, there.
You have everything you need? Yep. So Claire, when we get to the end, we'll have 3. You can do 3 questions from your crowd. You get to pick who they are. All right. Yeah, stick that back on there. Do you want to put it on the other stand? It might be easier to see.
Yeah, probably.
There you go.
And then I'll turn it towards everyone.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. There we go. All right.
My
My paper was about Rosalind Franklin, one of my favorite scientists to learn about this year. So Rosalind Franklin was one of the most overlooked scientists of the 20th century. In fact, no one even gave her a second glance until after she died. Little did they know, she actually helped revolutionize our understanding of biology and the uses of coal. Let's look more deeply into Rosalind Franklin's life and consider why she is called the unsung hero of science. Born in 1920 in Notting Hill, London, Rosalind was the second of 4 children: David, herself, Colin, Roland, and Jennifer. Her parents were both wealthy Jews with great social lives. They had good jobs too. Ellis Arthur Franklin, her father, was an investment banker, and Morrell Frances Rayleigh, Rosalind's mother, assisted her grandmother in law firm. Rosalind and her siblings were all treated equally by their parents, including the girls. There was no social prejudice in their house. Rosalind was an intelligent young girl who loved to make things and was always curious. She was never very interested in dolls and preferred construction toys. For her 8th birthday, her parents got her a kid's workbench, and she spent most of her days building it. When she was 9 years old, she was sent to a boarding school that she hated very much. She got corrected a lot, which made her very angry. For the next couple of years, she was homeschooled. Her parents weren't thrilled about it, but they found a good tutor who was always very nice to Rosalind. When she turned 11, she went to St. Paul's Girls' School. She had heard of the great science courses and chose to go to school there. From the earliest age, Rosalind set herself apart from her peers, choosing a path outside of normal expectation. When Rosalind turned 18, she went to Cambridge University and mastered in chemistry. When World War II started, all the men, including scientists, went to war. This left all the women at Cambridge to study independently, but Franklin didn't mind. In fact, she loved it. There were no teachers to criticize her and no boys to criticize her as well. She decided to work on finding the different uses for coal. She found many and published them in a paper called The Holes in Coal. It was unusual for a girl to publish this type of discovery for being so young and, well, feminine. In 1945, after the war, Franklin moved back to France. She moved to France. There she worked with Jacques Metternich. He taught her the X-ray diffraction method. With this method, that would later help her obtain photo 51, a picture of crystallized solid matter. She enjoyed France because it was better than London in every way. France was cleaner and the women were all treated equally. Living there was a shock, but she learned to love it. In 1950, after practicing using X-ray diffraction methods, she reluctantly moved back to London and started working on the structure of DNA. In London, Rosalind and Maurice Wilkins worked hard to obtain photo 51. It was the 51st time they had taken a photo of DNA for it to actually work, and each photo had taken 100 hours to capture. Photo 51 is a picture of DNA's double helix. She was able to depict the double helix, but she did not know that Francis Crick and James Watson were also working on identifying the structure of DNA. They had paid Maurice Wilkins to show them photo 51, but without letting Rosalind know. Using Rosalind's data, Francis and James published their model faster than Franklin's. So it looked like Franklin just proved their point. Franklin died of cancer in 1958, never knowing that Rosalind and Crick had stolen her work. Francis, Crick, and Wilkins were all awarded Nobel Prizes in 1964. In 1968, Watson published his memoir revealing that Rosalind was the scientist who contributed the crucial X-ray crystallography data. Franklin was not awarded a Nobel Prize because they are not awarded after death. She had deserved one though. Unfortunately, despite her photography methods, she was denied the fame and recognition of discovering the double helix. But this story really truly made Rosalind Franklin one of history's greatest unsung heroes.
Yay, Claire!
Yes, Darcy.
I have a really good question. How do you get photos of Rosalind Franklin?
I looked them up online.
Good for you.
Anyone else?
Ready?
Oh wait, my question's two-parter. Why are your eyes so far apart?
I don't know. Because of DNA.
All right, that's the last one, Lewis.
How
What
come
is-
he has long hair, one picture is not in the decided to cut it.
Good job, Claire. All right, so look, we do have a couple parents who wanted to pick up early. So I want to take just a fast break because I want to throw y'all on the stairs and get my end of year picture. And then if I can take a second for my graduating people, and then we'll pick right back up where we left off. Is that cool? Okay, so if y'all could go and do what you do and run over to the stairs and pile on there where I take pictures. Yeah.
So you'll be in the front, right?
I will be in there.
Alexa, down hallway light. There we go. Do your thing.
Roll on there. And run
All
here.
right, so do like those two. I can't see you two up there. Go down. So do like those two. We'll do a serious one.
Yeah.
Serious one. Me one.
I work overnight, so she was
So,
getting
for
up.
the sake of not getting
I was
ridiculous,
going to
let
bed.
me make sure I can see all faces.
So my husband brought her, he didn't sleep.
Right, so to make sure we can see all faces for feel just many of you. Do some action, can you girls push up a little bit, each one in, down a little bit. All right, you're gonna do a chin, you gotta lean in between James
She's
and,
with us, so she didn't be here by now.
all right, so let's get a serious smile.
Oh, yeah.
And now show me your face.
Does she want to
Awesome.
go?
All right, so don't put that over. I want to, because I gotta graduate first. Don't put that over.
Famous graduation. I know, it's exciting. I don't care.
Number 12.
Okay, I need Shannon,
Maybe you should do the bottom box then, that's probably.
Michael, Cole, Keith,
Where do you want us?
over here.
I'm right here.
No, here. Keith, over here.
There was no security.
Okay, so. Right where you are? No, you're right here. She can turn around that way. There you go. All right, so these five, down in front, if you're not going these five, these five are basically graduating out of high school science. 4 of the 5 have been with me 4 years. Wave your hands, you 4 of the 5. And the other already did the earth science prereq before she got to me. So these 4 are done. And who is done? That's the man. A couple of you are graduating, like seniors. Done. So, oh, she's like, wait. I'm gonna borrow Cole's. You guys have some gifts in here. Obviously, you have this, right? I'm opening your present. Everybody's looking at your uterus right now, which is fine. So, can you open please? So everybody's getting a little keychain from me, little biology keychain with like DNA, tree of life, and microscope on it. On their way out seniors are getting a little tumbler. And they all have this photo. And I want to read this to you because it's pretty daggone impressive. So, insert name, has successfully completed the high school home study science program offered by Lab Rats Cooperative Learning, which by the way, very soon will be Lab Rats Cooperative Learning LLC. Demonstrated by the completion and mastery of 520 course hours lecture and 208 course hours lab totaling 800 home study hours across 4 disciplines of science coursework, earth science, physical science, chemistry, and biology, thereby far exceeding the Georgia Department of Education high school graduation minimum requirement of 480 hours across 4 disciplines of science coursework. Congratulations. I will make you ever. My life would be very different without you. You are very welcome. All right. Nice. Everybody should really clap for that. And I'm not gonna cry now. Crying usually. Okay. I'm lying. Who wants to go next? Anybody want to go next, or should I just pick?
I can go.
All right, Michael.
I'm gonna go. You want me to use the Dropbox?
Yeah, it should be right there. If you close that, it should be up.
You did. You venture trusting all that thing.
Excuse you. Excuse you.
She's so good. All right, Michael, let's see. Let me double check. Get this up there.
Oh, yeah, by the way, what time
This is this one. Is that yours? Okay. All right. I guess not. I find this better.
1:41.
There you are. Yep. Okay. Without further ado, Mr. Bob.
Right. Strong.
Rhinophilia.
These are the fun ones. Can you get it? You need help. Scoot it up. Drag it up.
Yeah, drag it up.
Drag it up and it's at the bottom.
Press the big box.
There it is. See it? Okay.
Press the big box.
Yeah, that's it.
That makes it gone.
It's pronounced Rhynchocephalia.
Yes, it is.
Rhynchocephalia, or more specifically, the living species of Tritara. It has 6 specifically unique qualities and 1 gorgeous smile. These are the 6 qualities. I only have 4 minutes, so you have to choose which one you want to go first, and then we'll just keep on changing. I heard dollars, jaw, and teeth first.
Third eye.
All
They
right.
have 3 jaw
Oh,
bones
nice.
and 3 rows of teeth. They have 2 top rows of teeth and 1 bottom row. And the jaw makes it so that the bottom row goes in between the top 2 and then pushes out forward like a knife. So as you see on the picture, the GIF on the bottom is an animated GIF of a computer generated back corner bone of the tuatara. So their bone goes down and then back and then up and then in, out, such that they can both chew and tear at the same time. They're also one of the very few cold-blooded chewing animals. Their teeth are fully fused to the jawbone, meaning that they don't ever lose them, but they're still considered teeth under the classification that scientists chose years and years back. The reason they have 3 jawbones is because their bottom jaw is split into 2 bones, such that they can both rotate and push forward and backward. That was necessary, apparently, for ultimate chewing, or as some would say, unique mastication. What's next?
Third eye.
Third eye. We're doing third eye. They have 3 eyes.
Oh,
They have 3 eyes. The third one is called the parietal eye. It has a lens, a retina, and nerve endings, but it is not able to see as well. We don't know what it does. We don't know why it's there. We have a lot of guesses, such as navigation, thermal regulation, circadian rhythms, all these things it could be used for. They are nocturnal animals. They do most of their hunting at night, so that probably helps somehow. We don't know. And of course, on the left-hand side, you'll see a picture, right-hand side, you'll see a picture of the third eye. It is an eye and it is their third one. So what's next?
The lack of penis.
Sex differentiation was first.
Boo.
two taurs do not have two different chromosomes for their sex. So as we answered on our midterm, on our final, hopefully correctly, male humans have XY and females have XX.
Oh, I answered correctly.
Yes. Tuatara does not actually have that difference in chromosomes. And this means that they can, later in the incubation process of their egg, they decide their sex, not at conception, not at the first moment of chromosome crossing over. And they decide their sex based off of the temperature of the egg at that moment in incubation. If it's above, if it's above 22 degrees, it'll probably be a male, and if it's below 22 degrees, it'll be a female. That's just how they work. Wait, what's next?
Lack of penis.
Okay. And despite having the embryological beginning, or the formation of first nubbin, they don't actually. Excuse me?
Did you say nubbin?
You said nubbin.
You said nubbin.
Have you ever?
It's a Friends reference. This is a Friends reference, nubbin.
They just don't form it. They could have, and they decided not to. And the only other amniotes without a penis are birds. Fowl, so chickens, all these things, they have the same thing where they have the formation for it, and they decide not to form it. And yeah, their main behavior is more similar to that of birds, in which sperm is delivered into the female during a colloquial kiss.
Cloaca.
Rather, cloaca, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Rather than via the penetration of penis. It's just, they just decided not to along the evolutionary journey. They backed out. You can see on the left-hand side, the red jungle fowl does not form a penis either, but it still has the same embryological formations as the other things that form an embryo. So they just decided not to. What's next?
Longevity.
Longevity it is.
I think that'd be your last.
Longevity, they can live to be 100 years old.
That's
Woo!
great.
Woo! 100 years with no falls. Impressive.
It's unfortunate.
Anybody have questions for Michael? He can take 3.
Back in my day.
What's the question, Jack?
You said what other people's opinions of what the third eye is, what is your opinion on that?
Best after I have before I forget it.
Thank you.
No.
No.
Who did the study? See how long?
Aww, I got it.
Yeah,
Where's your other hand?
I got it on the National Geographic, but it's not really a study, it's just not.
I have those words.
I know, right? I can answer that question.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Michael, that was outstanding. Thank you. That's the best slide of the day.
Michael, I decided how to have a penis.
Perfect.
So Cole, I want you to note that your best friend has put you on a slide about an organism that lives 100 years without a penis.
I thought it'd be the whole time making this.
All right. So do we have another volunteer? Go ahead, Cole. Is there a Michael slide in there? Because if there's not, you missed an opportunity, I think. I know. He didn't.
Yeah.
You went old school.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, it's like 300. It's like 300.
So you guys won't be able to just see this because you have to look inside, so I'm gonna put it in the middle, or y'all can pass it around, don't break it. That's all I ask.
Cole likes
But at the end of
styrofoam.
it, it's just because I haven't done one of these in a while, so. There you go. Okay, well, we'll get started with that then. So
I'm a fan of cars.
I am too, it's really cool, right? So I assume everybody here's been in a car, so it's one.
Stop.
Okay.
Yes.
Forever. I'll make it a little harder.
Yes.
Not right now, but maybe later.
All right, go ahead, Cole.
Right, so lots of cars in this country. I'm sure you all see them. They're everywhere. In fact, there are 276 million vehicles registered in the United States. 91% of households have access to a vehicle, right? Which means they essentially are the primary means of transportation for everyday Americans. They're pretty great things. You can get places. They're fun. They make transport reliable, independent, things like that. But one downside to cars, to independent travel of any kind, is accidents. They happen. A lot of them are the fault of humans. Maybe it's God honest mistake. Maybe you're not doing something responsible. But one kind of accidents that we have no control over is animal collisions. In fact, this was last year, there were 2.1 million animal collisions that occurred, right? Out of those, over half, about half, 1.4 million of them were with deer. Probably isn't surprising to you guys, and in fact, this is such a common occurrence that we have a saying about deer accidents, which is blank was caught in the headlights, right? Because deer, when they get headlights and eyes, it's not moving. So why is that? So, before I go into that, let's talk about deer for a second, so you guys have a better idea of all of that. So, okay, real quick, I'm focusing specifically on the white-tailed deer, because there are two in North America. There's white-tailed deer and there's mule deer. White-tailed just, I think, makes a little more sense for this part of the country, because that's where you're going to see them. So, in total, there are 38 subspecies of the white-tailed deer. I am not even going to attempt to pronounce their correct scientific name. I'm probably just embarrassed myself, so let's not do that.
As if Michael hasn't already done that for me.
Hey.
I'll give it a go. So it's Odocoilus virginiae. Abort. Yeah. Like I said, 38 subspecies of those in of white-tailed deer, and that goes around the entire world, but only 17 of them are found in North America. The territory you'll find these guys in is they go from, if you're looking at the world map, the southern Yukon of Canada, and then they make their way southeastern all the way down into the United States. So they are found in the west, mostly in the east. They skip over specifically the states of, there's one in Alaska, Hawaii, California, Nevada, and Utah, so you're not going to find any there. So the deers themselves, they range pretty greatly in size. On one end of the spectrum, the full-grown male members of the subspecies here are at their largest can weigh 79 pounds, which for those of you who don't know is like through about. So it's not, it's a small deer.
Size deer.
Pretty small deer. But on the other end of the spectrum, you can have deers that weigh up to 220 pounds. So that's a pretty big deer.
That's not size
Small.
They're large. They're very big. So another important thing to know about deer is when their breeding when their breeding season is, and when they are most active, because that's when you're more likely to run into them on the road. So the prime breeding season really lasts no longer than a month in total, but it ranges from the end of winter all the way till, I believe it was, the end of summer, late summer through the end of winter. So it goes long, but for each individual population, it only lasts about a month. So it's somewhere in that range. And in terms of daily activity, white-tailed deer are mostly active in early dawn and early dusk hours. And those are times of low light, right? Not a whole lot of light. So what makes that important is this right here. And to put it in plain terms, deers are blind, guys. They're pretty blind. In fact, if you were to put it in human terms, they have an estimated 20 to 200 vision, which means for every 200 feet, if there's an object 200 feet away, they have to be within 20 feet of that object to see it clearly. It's not great. But thankfully for deer, they don't need to see as clearly because they're adapted to motion, which is why when you're way back from a deer and you stand still, he won't see you the moment you like barely move your arm. He moves, right? But it brings a good question, right? If there's a 3-ton piece of metal coming at it at 50 miles an hour, why doesn't it move? When if you step on a twig 100 feet away, it's going to bolt. And I feel like that's the scariest thing it's ever seen. And that has something to do with more of the anatomy of deer rather than something that people might think is like the smarts of the deer. Well, it's just stupid. It's not stupid, in fact. The problem is that deers have a similar eye anatomy to humans and most other mammals, meaning they have retinas. And a retina is the layer of photoreceptor cells and violet cells within the eye. They capture incoming photons and they transmit them along neural pathways as both electrical and chemical signals for the brain to perceive a visual picture. And the retina consists of primarily two photoreceptors, these being rods and cones. Cones help with color vision, rods help with low light vision. Deers have a lot of rods. We don't have that many rods. We have some, which is why when the lights go off, we can see. But when the lights go off, deer can see a whole lot better. Didn't say they can see it clearly, they can see that. That's the point. They have. And rods in general are about 1,000 times more sensitive to light. And this is a big reason for why freezing happens. So if there's a deer wandering across a dark road, you're driving and then you come up, you're driving a car and you get your headlights. Headlights are generally somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 lumens. This guy, his pupils are adjusted, they're all the way open, trying to let as much light as possible in, because he's trying to see his way through the dark. Then you come around a corner, your light's on, and then he sees it, right? His eyes, their immediate biological response is for the pupils to close, right? Because it's too much light, and has to process that amount of light. And the problem with that is the deer doesn't know what to do in that moment because it can't physically see you, blinded it. So what you have to do is in its brain, it needs to go, well, I can't see what's happening here. I don't know what's happening. And I'm not gonna make any rash decisions if I can't even see what's happening. And at that point, it's generally too late.
Why not jump into the woods? You
Well,
know?
yeah, which brings up some good ideas, right? How are ways you can make this better? How can you prevent this? Well, one great thing to do is,
Don't run into them.
that's a good idea. So, see if you can stop it before it happens, which means you drive on the road, don't go too fast on turns, especially in areas where you know there might be deer. And if you get yourself in a situation where you have to do something, it jumps in front of your car at the last second, remember, only do these things if it's safe, but if you can do it, honk the horn, that's an additional sense that it gets to use. Flash your high beams, because that's more like emotion. It sees that and then you might move. So be careful with this.
Didn't know that.
Yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
Thanks,
I think that's about all I have
and
here.
car damage.
And yeah, that's a big part. Yeah, so just be careful with what you're doing before you have to deal with any problems that could be, whether it's the economic problem of your car, the emotional problems of, oh, I hit a deer, or maybe there's some criminal things involved too. So,
Dear murderer. Yeah, you can pick 3 people who have questions.
Do drug companies just spray deer off the road, just like, oh, put a little bit of that in here?
Do drug companies do that?
Yes, we don't know.
Yes, we don't know.
I think that's up to
Yeah,
the local
some of the
jurisdiction
aliens
and
might
their road camp
Yes, we don't know.
department, but
Oh, choose carefully for your next 2.
Jack.
Do you know the statistics of car crashes
Ah,
caused by?
Caused by deer? Yeah, it was
Lewis, it's it.
2, but yeah, 1.4 million of them, so it's like, I wanna say 67% of all animal closures are deer. Be careful. And I'll go. Hey, that's a picture, man. I can't. What's up? Yeah. 3? Maybe, that's not what I found. I was specifically within, I believe it was just North America. Or no, United States, I think it was 2. Yeah. What's
black?
Running over.
Do you know what black-tailed might live?
Ooh.
I didn't see anything like that. I got that information from the what's it, the FBI stuff. Not FBI, that's one.
FBI, federal, pull up your hands, this is a
All
rape.
right, thank you, Cole. We're gonna have Colton go next. Volunteer. Colton, you have something on the computer there that needs to go up? Okay, let me get this kicked off. So I'll be back. Excellent.
You want to roll card? Roll
Yes.
card.
All right. Sorry. Come around
Go
here.
to, here, come see this.
Just disconnected while Cole was talking.
Well,
so-
not on this one.
I rolled the car.
Do you want to roll the card?
If you keep having the yellow one.
Just watch the drinks on the floor while you're rolling cars. That'd be good. Same. Go.
Card rolls.
Have you ever crashed into a deer?
No, thankfully not.
Oh, I thought that was why you.
I've never
No.
driven before. I crashed into a
I don't
curb
know
on a
why.
golf cart.
It's awesome, I didn't
I
know.
don't stick to golf cart.
State.
Well, when I was a little kid, my dad used to do this thing where we drove through the lawn. Mom hated it on the golf cart and like we went down steps, giant hills. And our lawn was stairs.
I had made one of these since like eighth grade or something. Yeah, I just went out of the woods and got some small fish up.
So cool.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Hard part for me was picking which color was running. I had a couple.
Which one?
Fiestas.
You have great Spanish.
I did, I didn't think about that.
All right, so folks, we got Colson, so let's give him our undivided attention. Thank you, Colson.
Yes.
Lighter turtle shells flatter than tortoise shell. Lighter crocodiles have long necks. How do lizards smell? And why don't snakes have legs? These animals are all reptiles, and well, they have many similarities. They all have characteristics that make them unique. What is a reptile? Standard characteristics of most reptiles are that they are animals that lay soft shell leathery eggs they are cold-blooded, have scaly skin, rich underfur, and are vertebrates. While some snakes and lizards give birth to live young, most reptiles lay eggs. The reason their eggs are soft is because they don't need to be hard, since the parent is not sitting on them. They don't have to support the weight. In a similar way, most reptiles, except for crocodiles, which is 4 chambers, have a 3-chambered heart. The reason is that their metabolism simply doesn't require a 4-chambered heart, so they haven't evolved to have it. But some turtles are actually starting to develop a septum which will lead to 4 chambers. Snakes are reptiles characterized by having 1 lung, a forked tongue, and no legs. Among the other standard reptile characteristics, out of the 3,000 snake species, only 54 are purely aquatic, while approximately 750 are venomous. Around 1/3 of all venomous snakes can kill a human with a single bite. Unlike other reptiles, snakes can have over 400 ribs, and snakes do not have legs. Both of these features help them to move and hunt. Being ribs makes them more flexible to make it easier to get around. Snakes can't chew, so they have to swallow through the hole, and their many ribs help with that too. If they had legs, they would get in the way because of the way they hunt their prey. Many snakes are constrictors, and legs would be especially problematic.
That was good.
Saltwater crocodile is the largest reptile in the world. Crocodile family, which consists of crocodiles, alligators, caiman, and gavials, are reptiles characterized by having a long snout, bumpy scales, and short legs, along with other reptile characteristics. All crocodiles are amphibious, which means they go on land and in water. Crocodiles have long snouts which help them catch fish, and they sometimes swallow rocks to help them digest their food as well as affect their buoyancy. They have the strongest bite force of any animal, 30 times more powerful than a human bite force, but they have weak opening jaw muscles, which means a human is able to hold their snout closed. Unlike other reptiles, crocodiles have a 4-chambered heart, which is an adaptation for living in water.
Yep.
Turtles have a flat shell and feet that are adapted for swimming because they go both on land and in water. They're the longest existing reptile species. Their shell is their skeleton. They have 3 ears, one on each side of their head and one on their nose, and
They have a flat shell and like tortoises and swim. Not all turtles can retract their limbs into their shells. Sea turtles, for example, can't retract their limbs. One variety of sea turtle is the leatherback. The leatherback sea turtle is the second largest reptile alive today. It has not evolved much in 220 million years. Unlike other turtles, the leatherback turtles only eat sea squirts, jellyfish, and other jello-like creatures. Turtles are more closely related to birds and snakes and lizards, and some species of turtles can even hide in trees.
Wow.
Many people think that tortoises and turtles are the same animal, but they have many differences. Tortoises are characterized by a dome-shaped shell, bird-like beak, and flat feet. The largest tortoise species ever was the Galapagos tortoise. The Galapagos tortoise hunts birds by luring them under its shell and retracting its limbs and crushing the bird. The giant tortoise did not receive a scientific name for 300 years due to failure of delivery of specimens to Europe, because they were all eaten by sailors on the way by great taste.
Yeah.
Tortoises can only survive on land because they are so heavy for their size and sink in water. They have taller shells than turtles. They don't need to mix air with anything.
That is funny. Oh my goodness.
Lizards are reptiles that live on land and usually have 4 legs. Smell with their tongues and are able to hide in small spaces, such as under trees, rocks, and sand. There are over 6,000 species of lizards, but only 3 produce their own venom, which are the Gila monster, the Mexican bearded lizard, and the Komodo dragon. Recent research suggests that most lizards actually do have weak primitive venom glands, but they are only harmful to small prey animals. The Komodo dragon has 3 eyes, but the third only detects light. Some lizards will detach their tail with defense against predators, which makes them unique from other reptiles. As you can see, even though they're all reptiles, they each have something that makes them unique from the others. There is even variation inside those things, which is what I think makes reptiles so interesting.
Good job. Do you want to take any questions or no? I don't think so. That's good. All right, awesome. Good job, Golden. Very good. I like the tail dropping bit. Yeah, first person was great. Anybody else want to know? Oh, look. Oh, heck. We're going to fight it out. Yeah. All right. Pick a number between 1 and 5. You're up. Yeah, okay. Are you one of these or you have not? Okay. All right, come and crackers. Here's your drink, buddy. All right, let's get your in. Everything that's ready is ready, and if not, it'll come in the or email. I don't know, one or the other. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Bring paper.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, please, yes, please.
Cross parallel.
Oh, yeah.
This one's more coming, this one I just thought.
That's
reminded me of it.
Check your camera.
I will.
All right, so are we ready? Miss Jackie's leaving. For anybody that needs to say hasta luego.
Had a great summer, man.
Oh, man, there's no people left.
Oh, you get to be math holder?
Have a great summer.
There you go.
Some of those custom things are made, so.
You can put it on the bed.
Like mood board versus,
She is.
Yes.
All right. Bye. Say hasta.
Hasta luego.
Later, girly girl. I'll catch you later. All right, Piper's ready, so zip it in the back, chatty boys.
Bye.
All right, Miss Piper, let's see what you got.
Videos go to rescue too. If you have, then you've used or eaten something fermented. Both of the things I listed are different types of fermentation, 2 out of 3 types. Alan had said there were 3 types of fermentation: lactic acid fermentation, alcoholic fermentation, and acetic acid fermentation. In lactic acid fermentation, different sugars get turned into lactic acid by the yeast without needed heat. In alcoholic fermentation, yeast breaks down pyruvate molecules into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Lastly, in acetic acid fermentation, grains, fruit starches, and sugars turn into acetic acid.
Slow down, Miss. Are you breathing, baby? Or are you okay? All right, good. Keep going. It is, yeah, you're good.
Now, fermentation has been around for a long time, since forced known used to be in 7000 BC. The forced known spoilage was in 6000 BC, and Egyptians started to make forced-made cheese in 3000 BC. As some of you might know, some of the people who worked on fermentation helped disprove something called the spontaneous generation theory. In case you don't know what that is, spontaneous generation is the hypothetical process of living organisms developing from non-living matter. According to the theory, if cheese and bread were wrapped in rags and left in a dark corner, after about a month or so, mice would just appear.
That was a laugh. That was a laugh. I get it.
Now, many people tried to disprove said theory, but the person who finally did was none other than Louis Pasteur. As some of you might know, he also played a big part in what we know about fermentation. He was the one that proved that specific fermentations happen because of different types of organisms. He did many other things with fermentation. For example, he showed that the souring of milk was caused by microbes in 1857, and he destroys unwanted bacteria in 1860. I know what you said.
Cold.
Wait, what did they say?
Doesn't matter. He also demonstrated that air doesn't need to be heated for items to remain stale with his famous Swan-X flasks, which finally disproved the theory of spontaneous generation. Because of his work, he became known as the founder of food microbiology and microbiological science. One of the possibly more important things he had done was his invention of pasteurization. In 1863, at the French King's Napoleon III's request, he studied wine contamination. When he did, he found that it was caused by microbes. And to stop said contamination, Pasteur used a simple procedure of heating the wine to 56 degrees Celsius. A process now known across the world as pasteurization. Now, as many of you probably know, fermented things come across all over the globe. Some places have more than other things because of precautions. For example, Mesopotamia was where pickles originated in 2000 BC. Yeah, I actually have pickles in there if you want to try some.
Ooh.
Sauerkraut actually originated from China. About 1,000 China started making it in the 16th century. Another great fermented cabbage root is kimchi, which first appeared in 3 kingdom times in Japan, Korea. One of the great things about it was that if you made it in a cool spot in a clay pot, it could stay there for a long time without going bad. So, it was good fun.
Which is nice. I've done it.
Long live
but
I don't know.
I don't think she's done yet.
Who tested pickles like after a super long time when it's definitely gone bad and did they die?
I got no clue.
Let's let her finish before you start.
Hot sauce is one of the few fermented things from ancient Aztecs in Mexico, around 7000 BC. They would use it for some interesting stuff too. For instance, this would be normal if your food was too bland, you would add hot sauce. If you're short of hot, you would eat some hot sauce. And if you were being attacked, you would spray them with hot sauce. Now, that's
fixes
like
everything.
some area, and it probably should be, seeing as that's probably where people got the idea for mason pepper spray from. Outside of vinegar came from ancient Greece around 400 BC. It said that Hippocrates prescribed it with honey to treat basic illnesses like a cough or cold. It was also prominent in China and Africa as alternative medicines. Now, how many of you have heard of going? Maybe I should use its full common name, fish sauce.
Fish sauce. Mm.
Originally, it came from ancient Rome in the 4th century. You might not realize this, but it was made out of fish blood. That's why babies come with their ears. Because of this, it was extremely expensive. So, it said that it has a lovely color of blended honey wine. Fish blood. This yogurt, which has been around for a long time, was being seen in the Neolithic period, but no one truly knows when it was first made. It was from continents such as Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. That's why it has 3 things. Cheese is thought to have first been made in 8000 BC, but we aren't sure when it was made. As I stated earlier, Egyptians made it in 3000 BC. But doesn't mean that they were the first ones to make it and first made that. If you went back in time and tried some of the cheeses, you would have found that it was extremely salty. This was so the cheese would last longer. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg for fermented things. I mean, I didn't even start to get into booze, or sourdough, or alcohol, or the weird thing from Iceland. It's agreement. But if I did, it would take way too long, then that. So, yeah, just a quick recap. There were 3 types of fermentation. Sourdough didn't originate from Germany, and spray hot sauce at Venice.
Good job. Nice job, Pepper. Fish blood. Have any Piper 3 questions, anybody?
Yeah.
Still need a fish one.
Probably yes.
Did that just ruin your entire thing there, James? Yeah. Ah! Yeah.
When was kimchi created? Kimchi was first created around the Kingdom time, which I don't remember.
Hey Alexa, when was the 3 Kingdom time in Korea?
Here's something I found on the web. According to Wikipedia.org, Goryeo was a Korean kingdom founded in 918 during a time of national division called the Later Three Kingdoms period that unified and ruled the Korean peninsula until 1392.
Thanks, Alexa.
Whatever was before that.
Can you talk that fast?
It was old.
I mean, I had to because the first time I did it when there were a lot more paragraphs and another page. It took 19 minutes to do, so after I put it all down, it's still. So,
No, because I paused the timer. Whenever we got off topic, I had paused.
Excellent.
very, very good. So many times.
All right. So who's next? Is it going to be another Benson? Oh, is Shannon gonna go, or do we need another Benson to go? Or are you like needing them to go? Okay, then this Shannon was next, right? Weren't you? Shannon? I think Shannon was. You were next, right? All right, Shannon. Let's see it. I want to see it. I'm very excited for this one. Did you have a? Okay, you didn't have a computer thing. All right.
No, I didn't.
last year. All right, are you ready? Okay, gang, let's give Shannon our attention. That was really cool, Piper. All right, Shannon's turn. Let's look at Shannon. Everybody stare at her. There she is. Hi, Shannon.
Talk loud, Shannon.
All right, here she goes.
Alright. Alright, my presentation on embryonic diapause. No. Embryonic diapause is a reproductive tactic by 140 different species in 7 or 8 different orders. In embryonic diapause, the embryonic blastocyst does not immediately implant in the uterus after sexual reproduction, creates a zygote. But instead it stays in dormancy, where little to no development happens. Reproduction has a large energy cost and it's better to have ideal conditions. For example, available food, mild weather, to make sure the offspring survives before giving birth. I can't do Pipers. No, I cannot.
Oh, no.
Because of the less ideal conditions, the normal gestation period is extended for a specific amount of time. Scientists now know that diapause is a conscious decision that is not controlled by environmental cues, such as hunger or temperature. This is why I think that embryonic diapause is one of the most interesting topics in biology. 2 types of mammalian embryonic diapause have been discovered. The first type is called facultative diapause. This is also known as lactation delayed implantation because it's using lactation. The female has birth while still lactating for her. She has a form. The stimulus of suckling will cause the embryo to go into a diapause. This is known to be in some rodents, insectivores, and marsupials. The second type of diapause is obligate diapause, which is also known as seasonal delayed implantation. And is a mechanism that allows mammals to time the birth of their offspring for good environmental conditions, which is normally the one you hear about when you hear embryonic diapause. This mechanism comes as a regular part of the reproduction cycle in animals like armadillos and ursus. The mammalian target of rapamycin or mTOR. Rapamycin helps organisms regulate their growth based on how many nutrients are available. It is sensitive to so many molecules and can detect when a cell's nutrient levels are low. Normally, this is important for growth in general, but since 2016, scientists have come to find that this enzyme also plays a big role in diapause. In a newer experiment published in 2020, researchers found that starving mouse embryo cells led to changes in cells that suppress mTOR. Food shortage, sorry. And when that happened, the embryos went into a state that resembled diapause. So that's where they got the idea. When something like a food shortage hits, the lack of nutrients might cause the drop in mTOR. Then you would have a paused pregnancy. Humans have mTOR, however, they cannot pause a pregnancy, as you probably know. And no one is sure why this is. It's a helpful term inconvenient for the animals who can do it. Diapause was discovered in 1854 after hunters in Europe noticed that pregnancy in roe deer seemed to last longer than normal. Since then, scientists have been interested in this process and has helped us understand more about the basic reproduction processes in all mammals. It took until 1950 before our knowledge of pregnancy had increased enough so that we can confirm what the hunters observed 100 years earlier observed, but how the process worked at the molecular level is still a mystery. So recently, there seemed to be no connection between these species, which used it and which didn't. And it didn't seem to be a unified mechanism for how the pregnancy was paused. Even the hormones controlling diapause are different between mammal groups. However, research now suggests that regardless of what hormones affect the uterus, the molecular signaling between the uterus and the embryo is conserved. At least between the mouse and ink and wallaby. Furthermore, researchers in Poland pause embryos from sheep, a non-diapause species, by transferring them to a mouse uterus, and then back into the sheep with no side effects.
No side.
No side effects at all. This shows potential for diaposity in mammals, including humans, one day. Scary times, but sure. Scary times.
Sometimes it's very scary.
In conclusion, diapause could help create better stem cells by new cancer treatments sometime down the future. So understanding how diapause works at a molecular level could lead to new therapies made to stop cell division or see markers for tumor stem cells, which are thought to be responsible for metastasis and cancer, or any cancer, sorry. Wouldn't it be ideal if we could decide the exact time you have a baby? Researchers have explored the possibility of embryonic diapause in humans, but it turns out we will never be able to take pregnancy planning to the level that animals like seals and kangaroos can. However, the concept behind embryonic diapause has further reaching implications, such as effective in vitro fertilization, stem cell research, and even cancer treatment.
All right. Oh, yeah, what you got going on? Hold it up.
Come here.
Looks like a blastula.
This is basically how the, it's a diagram for how embryonic diapause works and how it goes through into the birth stage.
Cool.
Or the embryo stage, sorry. That's that.
Questions? You got 3, take your pick.
Excuse you, it's now Johan, because some people can't spell John. That's not the same thing as like kangaroo.
Is it you? Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yes, it is.
That's how you spell John.
No, that's like that's Jahan.
Michael.
Jahan.
Do you know how many species have embryonic diapause?
Yeah, 130 different species. I got 2. Anybody else? Cheers.
How long, is there like a time limit on how long they can stop the production of babies?
It's our timer.
It depends on
Very
species.
nice creation.
It depends on. It's different types, different amount of time. But I know it's about a month, they can pause it for most of them.
Wow.
Or longer. Hey, I already answered 3, sorry.
All right, great. Thank you, Shannon. Before the next person goes, if you would please make sure there are no plates on the floor. The dog hasn't peed since like 9, so I'm gonna let him out. So if you just make sure there's no food on the floor.
Oh, do we let him out?
No, it's fine, just make sure you get them back.
That's right.
Letting that for time. Okay, so who was next? Do you want to go, Bailey? You sat down. So who do we want to go? I will randomly pick. All right, let's see. I got Alex, Drew, James, and Bailey. That's all that's left. Alex, Drew, James, James? All right, James, let's do it, man. Woo-hoo!
Oh, that's a movie.
Dun, dun, dun. All right, James. Woo! Do you need sound?
Yeah.
All right, let me make sure the receiver's up. I think it is. Better than top.
Hot sauce
But I have to make sure
with
it goes here.
You almost missed the movie.
Yeah, it should be good. Can you hear it?
1 second.
Mom, he's out wandering, it's okay?
It's fine. Oh, you're gonna listen. So,
First, we must answer, what is the immune system? The immune system has 2 main parts, the innate immune system, which is the first response to a pathogen entering your body, the adaptive immune system, which is the backup for the innate inside force. Some components of the immune system are T cells, which activate B cells, which make antibodies, bone marrow, which makes T and B cells, and the lymphatic system, which acts as a highway for your immune system. The first group of animals we'll be looking at are chondrichthyes. This includes sharks, snakes, and rays. And they've been on Earth for about 450 million years. Because of this, they have a great immune system. Like us, their first real defense is their skin, which is made of dermal denticles, as you can see on the right. These denticles prevent sharks from having bacteria attached to their skin and making colonies. Sharks also produce a compound called squalene in their liver, which keeps processes from happening inside bacteria and viruses. Their adaptive immune system consists of B and T cells, just like ours. The next group we'll be looking at are osteichthyes. This includes most freshwater and saltwater fish, and they've been on Earth for about 410 million years. Their adaptive immune system also includes T and B cells. They don't have a lymphatic system, although they do have very similar structures in their body. And stress in their environment can stop the immune system and many other systems from happening, as all the energy in their body goes towards their heart and muscles so they can get out of the situation they're in. The next group of animals we'll be looking at are amphibians. This includes frogs, salamanders, and caecilians. They've been on Earth for about 390 to 360 million years, and as you may know, they have great regenerative abilities. Salamanders can regenerate parts of their eye, limb, and brain. Their skin also has to have immunity, as 50% of the air they breathe in comes through it. This immunity includes resident immune cells and antimicrobial peptides. Their adaptive immune system also includes B and T cells. The next group are reptiles. This includes snakes, lizards, etc. They've been on Earth for about 310 million years. They have one of the worst adaptive immune systems. Their B cells only make 2 types of antibodies opposed to 5 like us. Since they're cold-blooded, if they're sick and they need a fever, they've been shown to seek out more heat. This is called a behavioral fever. And their scales make it so that they can live on dry land, unlike the amphibians before. The last group we'll be looking at are mammals. This includes mice, humans, and platypi. They've been on Earth for about 210 million years, and they're warm-blooded. So unlike the reptiles, we don't need to seek out extra heat for a fever. Our adaptive immune system also consists of B and T cells. Our B cells, as said before, make 5 different types of antibodies. And even though mammals are relatively young to the animal kingdom, we still have most of the immune features as all the animals before us. In conclusion, all animals have an immune system. Only very small parts of each animal's immune systems were covered here, and the immune system is very important.
Yeah! Okay, well, we know you have a question. Anybody else have questions for James or just
I
Darcy?
have a question. Exactly how long was the video?
It was 3 minutes, 59 seconds.
Yeah, look at that. He squeezed that in. That was beautifully done. What do you need? Do you need me to take it down for you or? I got it. That was great. You look good. A little different all the time. So fun. See, all right, you got it. So who have we got left? 1, 2, and then 3, right? Drew or Alex or Bailey? Anybody volunteering? Do you want to go and say Bailey? No, let's go. Alex, let's go. Come on, Alex. There we go. All right. Good deal. And when Bailey came good next, she has a little more time to breathe. And if you want me to just watch it privately, I'm doing that with 2 other people, if that's what it comes to, okay? You're fine. All right. All both of you guys did this like 4 years ago or something. All right, here we go, Alex.
I did my paper on the life of Charles Darwin. He was born on February 12, 1809 to Robert and Susanna Darwin. He married Emma Wedgwood on January 29, 1831. He had 10 kids and died on April 19, 1882. He went to Shrewsbury School, which at the time was a boys-only boarding school from ages 8 to 16. At 16, his father sent him to Edinburgh to study medicine. In 1827, because he was not actually studying medicine there, just every other type of science, he was sent to Christ's College at Cambridge, where he got a Bachelor of Arts in 1831. When he set sail when he left for his trip, he set sail on December 27, 1831. He had terrible seasickness most of the time. He found a type of wasp called ichneumon, something like that. Ichneumons, which lay there, which are type of wasps that paralyzed grubs, lay their eggs on or in them so that they hatch and then will eat the animals alive.
Ew.
And he also found various fossils and specimens, including a variety of beetles, because beetle collecting was a common thing back then. I have a picture of his travels, his routes that you can pass around. So if you. Once on the Galapagos Islands, he explored the islands for 5 weeks. He found finches, he ate finches, he preserved finches. He found tortoises, he ate tortoises.
Yes.
Disposed of tortoise shells. He was also amazed to find penguins, seals, and sea lions living right near flying fish, cacti, flamingos, and iguanas. Then from there, he went on to various islands in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, to a few parts of Africa, and then back to England, where he would spend the rest of his life. And he would then start work on his theory. The main parts of the theory of evolution are that random mutations will cause variations in organisms, which will affect how well organisms survive, reproduce, etc. Variations could be passed down to descendants. Those with good adaptations will survive and pass on the good adaptations. Those that aren't will get eaten or just die.
The animal world is a cold place.
Also, sometimes plants will eat you. Venus, flytraps, pitcher plants, etc. Eventually, once enough time has passed, normally hundreds of years, dozens of generations at the very least, all organisms of that species in that area will have that adaptation, or enough will have it that not having it is unusual. Which will eventually, after enough of these happen, and enough variations are acquired in an area, you'll see 2 species form out of one from 2 different areas. So let's just move on. You found some evidence to support his theory, including things such as the different shapes of the finches and the beak shapes. More things for you to pass around. Whether it's large beaks like the ground cacti, tree, whether it was large beaks like the large ground finch, cacti finch, or tree finch, to smaller beaks such as the gray or green warbler finches. Okay, yeah. He also found differences in tortoises on the Galapagos Islands. Different shapes of the shells, different color variations, even different neck shapes of tortoises. Some of them would have longer necks so that they could reach up and get higher food, while others didn't have to do that. They could eat lower to ground food, meaning they didn't get long necks. Some other evidence, one of the other things he used for evidence was a study he did on lily flowers that showed that they are designed for maximized pollination by insects. The different parts of the plant reproductive system are at the right height to ensure pollination. More evidence still was how selective breeding has shown that species can change, it can mutate over periods of time. As he was doing this, he was pulling together notes, he was getting evidence, and he was compiling it, and he eventually wrote an essay on it, but he didn't publish it. He took a break for a while and searched for someone to publish his notes if he died. That person was Joseph Dalton Hooker, a young scientist, young biologist, I believe, if I remember correctly, also geologist, that was thought by Darwin to be very similar to himself, personality-wise. And he told his wife that if he should die, give the notes to him. Then, in June of 1858, he got a package from Alfred Russel Wallace in Ternate, an island in the Dutch East Indies, which was an essay on evolution. And that's very similar to his, which caused him to go into a bit of a crisis because he had put his life's work into this, and someone else also came up with it. He wrote to his friends Lyell, I do not remember Lyell's first name, I think it started with an R. Maybe Richard, Robert, something like that. I know it's not Rex. And eventually he passed on both his own essay and Wallace's essay to Lyell, because Wallace had asked him if he found it interesting to pass it on to Lyell. And eventually Lyell and Hooker found a solution. Both Darwin and Wallace would present their findings in their essays at the same time to the Linnaean Society of London. And so on July 1st, that same month, Hooker and Lyell would present the paper. Wallace was not a member of the society, and Darwin was grieving over his son that had died 3 days prior, and so could not attend. Also might have been mildly sick, I cannot remember. Mild sick.
So
After that, he spent over a year working on pulling together a book, which would become On the Origin of Species. And then on November 24th, 1859, he published that book. Some of the reactions of the more notable figures in the debates and fights over evolution were people like Thomas Henry Huxley, who defended evolution vigorously enough to earn himself the title of Darwin's Bulldog, or Bishop Samuel Wilberforce, who disliked it strongly because as the book Essay and Reviews, which Wilberforce did not like in the slightest, mentioned On the Origin of Species as a great read. I believe Minister John Leafchild wrote a scathing anonymous review in the Athenaeum, if I'm pronounced. Richard Owen was an outspoken critic because he had been mentioned in the book as having always been against evolution, and it was a bit of an insult. Adam Sedgwick was an old mentor of Darwin's who was strongly against the theory, but was still friendly with Darwin until his death. Darwin's help. In 1833 in Argentina, while on his trip, he was hit by a fever and stayed in bed for multiple days. In September of 1834, he was affected by a malady now believed to have been Trypanosoma cruzi, based on symptoms and because it was after an attack by the Benchuca, a blood-sucking bug known for spreading the cruzi.
Nice.
From 1837 to 1838, right after he got married, he had heart palpitations whenever he got severely stressed out. And in 1849, he was miraculously cured of a different unknown disease by hydrotherapy, which made him a believer in it for the rest of his life. And in 1882, on April 19th, he died either of a heart attack or as of yet unknown disease. He had also suffered from terrible digestive problems, headaches, eczema, things like that, for nearly 40 years at that point. Nobody knows for sure what the symptoms were caused by. Some theories were Chagas' disease or severe lactose intolerance. That's my pick.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, Alex, any questions for Alex? No, we good? No, yes?
Oh, yes, I have to choose. Jack. I tried to ask an intelligent question, but I think that was hard. So, who was the guy who got assaulted by?
Richard Owen.
Weinberg area.
Claire.
How many like sources did you use to get all this information?
4, I believe.
Only 4?
Two of them were large books on Michael.
What, did you read any of like the scathing reviews of the
I
time?
did not look for any of the reviews. No. Probably could have, but at that point it was getting.
It was not necessary, I just thought it'd be neat.
Yeah, I didn't think that.
All right, Bailey's gonna go ahead and go, and then Drew, you're gonna close us out. I have a video for Sky that I can play after Drew if anybody's still hanging around. She had to split, so.
Bailey has
Who's
to
gonna go now? She's got it. We're gonna give Bailey our undivided attention.
This is why I took a picture. I think it's a meeting. I have a future meeting.
Yeah.
All right, let's give Bailey our attention. All right, Ms. A.
So I decided to research osteosarcoma, which is a type of bone cancer. There are lots of different symptoms for this cancer along with others. Common ones are bone pain, a lump felt through the skin, as this is a tumor cancer, or it's most commonly seen as a tumor. And there will be swelling and redness where the area is, and you can experience different pains or difficulties lifting or walking. And your movement can be limited as it's in a joint, as there is a growth, so it makes it harder to rotate or do that, move that joint. Okay, you hold on. Please tell me this is-
There you go.
Okay, I know I had written the first time. It forms where the bone is growing, so the growth plates at the ends of your bone, but that doesn't mean it can't spread if it is, that doesn't mean it can't show up on other parts of your arm, but the lump or the start of it will be closer to the ends. The red parts circled are more common areas, around the knee, near the shoulder, the jaw, and
You got Vanna White over there.
different, and then on the pelvis, so that's part of the mark. Most often affects the long bones or the leg bones as those grow quickly or suddenly, sometimes. And then in older adults, it is also common for it to be in the pelvis, the jaw, and not just the arm and the shoulder. As if you fall, it can show up as I'll explain later. Causes are not completely known, as no one's completely sure where this comes from. But rapid bone growth is one. Radiation exposure, as that can cause the cells to mutate cancer cells. Bones breaking, as when the bone is healing, you will have a chance for a bad cell to show up there. Being young, as well, you're growing as a child still, so growth spurts can also show up. And then other bone disorders that make their bones more brittle or more likely to break are also just one that can do that. Diagnosis normally will start with a full history, a physical examination to see where the tumor is, and then they will ask for symptoms to try to get a better idea. They will use a microscope to see what grade it is, and that will be explained later. There are lots of different tests that they can run, but a few of them are blood tests to see how your organs are going. Because if it has spread to your lungs, they may be able to tell with their blood test. X-ray to get a better look at the tumor, or if it's a central one, which will be a picture on the next slide. They'll get a better idea of where and how bad it is. MRIs will be ordered if the X-ray shows something unusual or uncommon, or they just can't get a clear picture. And ET scans are, in this case, a glucose tracker that they will inject, as the tumor's cancer cells will pick up more of the glucose tracker to show more and like a better idea of how the tumor is. So the bottom picture, it's kind of hard to see, but that's what the areas are. The thing in the bone is where it started, and that is the root of it, and then it has branched to become a tumor, a visible or noticeable tumor on the arm. But those are different grades. The intermediate is treated like the low grade, and the low grade is normally just surgery and possibly chemo after, depending on how bad or how much of the tumor they were actually able to remove with surgery. High grade is usually 10 to 18 weeks of chemo before, then surgery, and then chemo for up to a month after. No, for up to a year after. To treat ones that have spread or aren't operable, they will do just chemo. They'll be radiation therapy. And there are some new chemo drugs, but those are full body side effects. And then normally, and then if it has spread to your lungs, it is likely to return, as they can't be as harsh with chemo treatment as kind of needs your lungs. And
Just get new ones.
You got it. You got it.
Walmart, the
She's not done.
top left
Target.
picture is
She's
a
not done.
very bad invisible tumor, as you can tell. And the next one is a low to intermediate grade that is you're able to see that it's there, but it's not like a noticeable necessarily lump on the outside. Treatments, side effects can stick around for months to years and can include heart problems, lung problems for like breathing and like difficulties. Your hearing can be impaired. You can have kidney problems or even kidney failure in some cases, and then fertility problems. And neurological problems could be changes in mood, feeling, thinking, learning, and memory, as who knows what happens. And then you can also get another type of cancer from it. It is equally common in males and females till adolescence, as the growth is normally around the same. But at adolescence, males will normally have a slightly higher chance of getting it or having it develop. Average age for diagnosis is 15, but most commonly it's anyone under 25 that will get it. Although it is still common or still likely to get it after. There are around 400 to 1,000 cases diagnosed per year in the US. And this makes up 3% of childhood cancer. It can spread through your blood, lymph systems, and tissues. If it has not spread, you have a 70% chance of survival if it's treated. But if it has spread, it's as low as 30% to 50%. It is still bone cancer if it's spread anywhere else, as it's still bone cells, it's just in a different part of your body. And then sarcoma is a type of cancer found in connective tissue in osteomate bones. So this is a type of bone cancer in your connective tissue. And then they found a fossil that's around 1.7 million years old in South Africa on an early human ancestor's toe, which is what that picture is. That is a picture of the toe.
It's a toe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awful.
With the cancer on it.
Early human.
Yes.
Huge.
It's been magnified.
I saw that one.
Oh, Bailey! She said I was good. Thank God.
Research anything specific. I just like.
Only one more.
Okay.
Yes, I think that could have been what it was, yes.
Excellent.
I don't know many bone cancers.
No, that's really interesting. And that's a good point that you made. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I couldn't see your face.
I have bone like coming out, coming through your skin. Especially air.
No, that will more likely be an infection. Cancer is in this cancer is a mutated cell in this case. That this type of cancer is a mutated cell, which is how it forms.
Good job. Awesome. I think it's good that Bailey pointed out how if you have a particular type of cancer, if it spreads, it's still those cells.
Yeah.
Like I think I remember when we talked about it, I said that when my uncle had kidney cancer, they found kidney cancer in his spine and brain and everywhere else. It's kidney cells that are there. It's very interesting because it hits your lymphatic system, right? And then it spreads. So our last but not least is Mr. Stark here, the younger Mr. Stark.
Mine is on me. I know if adaption is a word. I can't find it anywhere.
We talked about it. There's adaption which is the verb, and adaptation, which is more like the descriptive noun. Yeah.
Adaptation of dogs into a human family, so.
Here, do you want to put it on the stand?
Sure.
Oh, it's showing it around. Okay, sure. All right.
That's a creepy dog.
Here's one.
Well, this is like a prehistoric, that's like a wolf, and this is a new. This is like 21st century.
All right, Drew, go for it. You can put it right on the sand, honey. Oh, you got that. That's right. You built that. All right. Shh, listen up.
I didn't write it down.
Read. Oh, well, where's your? Didn't you just have your
I'll
computer?
go grab my computer, I'll pull it up.
You're so prepared, Andrew.
I know, maybe.
All right.
Drew, how many have gone before you?
Yeah. Just everybody went before you. You
Yeah,
know.
I tried.
Yeah.
I
Close my computer and sit yours on top if you'd like. There you go. No, Bailey's beside you.
tried.
Oh, it's okay. All right, Drew, go right ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, alright, here we go. Let's read the whole thing, or-
You just talk or read, whatever you want to do. It's up to you.
Alright.
You can read it. It's quite good.
I'm just gonna make a summary of each paragraph. Alright. So, let's see here. Okay, so, dogs. People know about dogs, hopefully. But we have one named Ozzy.
Right here.
Never heard of it. But, dogs used, about 100,000 years ago, used to be like our oldest rival. Like, they were not good to be around, unlike today. It's called Canis lupus familiaris, that was the name of the wolf. So humans would set up camps, right? Or like prehistoric humans, they would set up camps, and then predators and whatnot would go to the camps to try to like eat humans. And humans would like chase the wolves away from the camp. And however, some wolves would not try to do that, and they would just kind of like chill. So humans would feed those wolves. They would feed them like scraps and stuff like that. So those wolves would stay there because they get free food. So then those wolves would have offspring, and the like the protectiveness of these wolves would keep other predators away from the camp. So this like this mutual relationship of food for protection just kept going for thousands of years. So today dogs live in our homes, and through 18,000 years of selective breeding, dogs have taken many forms, from like labradoodles to huskies. Dogs are the most popular pet in the world. And interestingly, humans and dogs show evidence of being chemically bonded, because whenever dogs and humans interact, both of our bodies release a hormone called oxytocin, which is frequently associated with love and protectiveness. Dogs, they're pretty smart, pretty intelligent animals. They can discern between different people, races, and even identical twins. But their brains lack the ability to like understand these differences and why they're important, if they are important. And they can't understand or kind of like recognize certain traits such as your age, your gender, and your size. So there is a commonly believed myth that in all packs, based off of pack animals, there's a organized hierarchy where it's like alpha male, and then alpha female, then beta, then yada. So that's actually not the case with wolves. Wolf packs are more like a human family. So there is still like a person in charge generally, but it's less obvious or apparent as a lot of people might believe. So if humans, so wolf packs are similar to human families. Do human families have hierarchies, and how does that affect our dogs? So hierarchies are a complicated subject, and many scientists have still debated whether or not humans still use them to this day in our families. For like the reason being that, like, you know, an American man might be physically stronger than his wife, but he doesn't really have power over her in any really real way. But this is not the case around the world in other countries. In other countries, mostly in Africa and the Middle East, husbands do have power over their wives in physical and economical ways. And this can place dogs' brains all out of whack. So depending on where you are, size and gender might determine hierarchy, and it also might not. So I'm still gonna focus on dogs in the US because the majority of dogs live in the US. I don't know how many of them have that down. So dogs are generally at the bottom of a US family hierarchy, and because of their dependence on humans. And the same thing would go for children, and dependence on humans, other humans is what like determines their spot. So on this one. Okay, so how would the structure of a household affect our dogs? So this is where adaptation comes into play, and more specifically, mimicking. Mimicking is the behavior of copying actions or other animal behavior, something like that. Many species can mimic the behavior of other species, especially if they are more successful than they are. They will copy them so that they will be as successful. So many dogs will copy the. What are you doing?
Keep focusing. Keep going, Drew, you're the last one, so let's get it done.
Many dogs will copy the.
Lewis,
behavior
don't
of their
distract.
parents Because they're more skillful, and many other species will do this as well. Kids might, pretend to be adults and whatnot, but like Ozzy all the time, he is really weird about that. So this is one of the reasons why in certain households that tend to be more violent, those. Oh, hello. The dogs, even if they weren't really a part of said violence, they tend to be less trustworthy and more dangerous. But dogs growing up in normal households, they're all right, they're not doing anything bad. So this does bring up questions. So do dogs think of us as parents? In order to answer this question, you have to understand that a dog's brain is not as proficient as a human's. Dogs understand that they're not human, kind of, but they don't really know why, and they still will see their human owners as their parents. So let's take the movie Elf, for example. Elf? Yes. So at the beginning of the movie, Buddy, the main character, he's a human, right? You've seen the movie Elf before. He doesn't know that he's a human because he was raised as an elf. Now it was obvious he was a human because he was really tall. But he's still he still thought he was not going to really matter. So this is kind of similar to a dog's thought process. They know that they're different, but they don't really know why. They don't really comprehend any form of differences at all. It doesn't really mean anything to them. So except for a dog, it's actually much harder because once again, the human brain is much what word did I use?
You used the word proficient.
I used proficient. I don't think I used it twice. How about much more advanced, capable? That's what it was. The human brain is far more capable than a dog's.
Okay.
So the human brain at least has the ability to understand critical thinking, but I guess that didn't really do that. So what do you have the advantage of critical thinking, which is a trait that dogs do not have. But when presented to the opportunity to meet other humans, Buddy eventually realizes that he, is a human. At the end of the movie, Buddy's place in the North Pole is sort of similar to a dog's place in the family. They know that they're different, but they're blissfully unaware as to why. She wrote that one.
Blissfully unaware was his phrase I gave you, yes.
So dogs have taken a long journey through thousands of years of evolution and selective breeding Today, dogs live in our homes and are the most popular working animals among military and police forces and, civilians, obviously. As well as being incredibly popular pets. Human interaction will shape the way individual dogs behave or connect them. Dogs are both intelligent and clueless. They have the brain capacity to understand that they're not human and even how to mimic humans, but they still think of their human families as pets. Dogs do not care who we are or what we look like. They just want to be loved, and for this reason, they are lucky to have us, and we are lucky to have them. So she.
I said it's a good quote. You should include it.
And that's, yes, this is actually a good quote. So, this is a quote from J.W. Stevens.
I think that's who it was. I just know the quote's a good quote.
Martin Luther King.
No. J.W. Stevens.
Yeah, so, be the person your dog thinks you are.
There you go. All right. Nice
I'm okay.
job, everybody. Beautifully done.
Go Martin Luther King.
That's everybody, right? I'm not missing anybody that's here? Okay, good. I got 3 that aren't here that I'm gonna watch on my own, but that's everybody that was here, so. You guys, thank you for an amazing year. You can hang out a little bit if you want. Just remember, dull roar. Jason's on a phone call at the moment. And when you're on your way out, check lost and found, take your bag. If you have a book to leave a book. And what was I gonna say? One more thing. What was it? Oh, if you didn't get your exam back today, it will probably come to you in the mail because there are a lot of things to grade and your projects too. Grading it all. Thank you, thank you. Woo! Hooray!
Thank you.
And nearly everybody will be back next year that isn't graduating out, so that is outstanding. Outstanding. I have a very small crop in my junior group, but yeah, all of my seniors, everybody, and then some matriculated. So, except for the what? Sorry, I don't know what that was. But
Are new parents Friday also?
I don't know, there's a lot of people.
I looked at the schedule for the day.
I don't know where it is.
No, it says new parents, like people are interested.
no, parents, if they're interested, they're gonna watch. There you go. Why? My two legs. What's up?
Get all of your
Oh, food. Wish. He's fine. Just don't jump at him or grab. Let him come to you and he'll be fine. See, there you go. Just let him come to you.
Hey, Alex.
Good job.
Hey, Alex.
Oh, just right
You know
here.
my bag says Mucko Boy. I got a new name today.
Oh my gosh, I'm fixing that for you. Give that to me. It's embarrassing. How did that even happen? I don't even know. I'm telling you, my autocorrect must have done it because I have a McCoy, who's one of my best friends, and it probably autocorrects. First, you like that. Sorry for dumb autocorrect.
Hey,
Okay.
your name was Mark.
Yeah. All right. See you later. Okay. Yep, binders and books are all good. So how have you been, Bosters? What you been up to today? What you been up to? What you been up to? Nothing much? School today, how about you?
Good day. I've been hanging out with friends.
Have you?
Oh, we went for a hike with my dad.
That sounds like fun. Are you showing you how to move it? Oh, yeah, that happened.
Did you get yours?
What happened?
We went on a hike with the kids.
Oh, that crazy dog? I guess they're just.
Joking.
Okay, your kids end of slideshow slide.
You in a long time. Probably soon, more often than that.
Whoa, Ozzy,
Who's
Come.
next in the way?
come. Ozzy, come. Oh, that's why. Oh, please, go to your room. Hey, go to your room. Go to your room. Ozzy, go to your room. Good boy. Yeah, if he's in there, you okay? Yeah, if he's in there, that's like his space. That's his. Maybe you know what I mean? Like, it looks like a cave. Because for him, that's like his little safe. Good boy.
one I put in this.
Yeah.
Other picture.
Are you trying to get by, James? Are the boxers?
Sorry if I pictured
Is there a bevy of Fosters? in your bed?
Always in their space.
A bevy of Fosters, they're everywhere.
I really.
Where's your James?
I don't know.
You want to see James? I want to see James. You don't need it.
Okay,
Good, come on.
cool,
Yeah.
yes, I'll take it out later.
Take me,
How just like all the tables and stuff.
Oh, you come back.
Actually.
Yeah, it's real, actually was
You want to
really
ask her now?
funny. I was
Yeah.
telling Jackie that, I didn't know anything about the bride except her name was Maria and she's 10 years younger than Erin. That's all I knew. Get there, find out she's from Evansburg. So I'm texting Jackie the whole weekend. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are from, oh, can you turn that off? Please, it's still going, the thing. I'm like, these people are from Ecuador, it's hilarious. And she's like, I sent her like a video of the mother
Better
daughter,
now.
father daughter dance.
How hot is that iPad?